Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy here today on the Bonsai Balcony. Yep, there she is. There's the star. Today on the Bonsai Balcony, we're gonna do a bonsai. We're gonna do a little balcony tour, just a little balcony tour, and a little catch up. On what's going on. We've got, yeah. It is a first of all, it is a magnetic, beautiful day in Alameda, California. It is also our Labor Day weekend, and which is to say it is Saturday, and it is, I'm roasting up here. I'm not gonna lie, it's really freaking hot. 80 on the ground. I don't know what it is up here, 4 floors up, but as we all know, cold goes up, right? No, I'm afraid not. It's pretty toasty up here. We watered early, and we're just kind of hanging back, waiting on, just kind of doing our check and seeing how everybody fares with the water that they've already taken in today. We're just kind of standing by, seeing if we need to do this again. I suspect I might. It's early in the day yet, and it's like I said, but we did. We watered early. And everybody's looking really lush and green, but they haven't seen the worst of this yet, and I know it's just gonna go right on up. Here we go. Let's start. This is I'm just gonna go from right to left. This is Princess in the Princess throne. Doesn't she look really good in that blue chair? You do. You just look spectacular, Frida. This is our Trident Maple. We are doing a we're doing a graft to this. We're doing an air layer, not a graft. We're doing an air layer to this puppy, and wanting to get some roots coming out where I'm gonna start the tree off right about here, and then try to make a really nicer base than what this is. I've never been really happy with this as the base, and I'm not the most patient person in the world, or the most authoritative when it comes to maples, but I have had this guy for a couple of years. It makes beautiful color, kind of a ruby colored foliage when it gets enough sugars, I should say. So yeah, I look to make this tree shorter and then do some work to it, and we're coming along on that. It's taken a little while, but I'm told it doesn't get hot enough here to make this go faster. So far, it's taken me about a year, and we're getting root results, but I'm not going to chop anything loose until I see a lot of roots, and we're progressing. So that's kind of what's going on there. In related maple, one of my early, now this is kind of news. One of my early projects was a forest. I heard forests were easy, forests were great for beginners, forests were yada, yada, yada. That whenever you see forests at a demonstration or something, the new people or the people who aren't affiliated with bonsai necessarily always gravitate towards the forest. This is almost 20, more or less, 20 Kodahan maple forest, and a lot of weeds. We've been having our troubles every year I've been having trouble with this. I thought Kodahan maples would be an excellent choice for making a forest because their leaves are so small. What I found is that if you're not just really on top of it per tree, doing a lot of manicuring and stuff, that you may not find that you're going to get the ramification that you want, in which case having tiny little leaves it's not really helping us. What we are finding that we have is trunks with tiny little leaves on them, instead of trunks with limbs that then have branches, that then have twigs, which then have tiny little leaves on them. And for lack of that, if you get water on them, here where I live, I've never not had an issue with powdery mildew when it comes to these trees. I have got some advantages going for us in that we've made some pretty fantastic bases. Some of these guys have fantastic bases. But starting this year, it looked to me like I'd already dropped 2 or 3 trees in this forest before spring ever came out. only to later see those same 3 trees. I mean, almost in July, finally put out some leaves, but not before everything else. So here's what I'm gonna do, Uncle, Uncle, on my Codahan forest. I think that I probably have a half a dozen trees here at least, and I'm gonna weed this thing and get it back to where I can see what I have in the way of living and dead material, and then I'm gonna separate these guys out and pot them, and they're gonna join the ranks of my show hen and my mame trees. I've got some really nice little glazed pots that aren't doing anything, and I've got some little maples here with a lot of potential that on a one-on-one basis, I think I could make some nicer trees out of this. The whole thing is I'm too lazy to manicure these things in the way that I would want to do to make these a success. I think that because they're in a forest, that makes it hard to weed. That also makes them harder to manicure, and I'm a little too lazy for that. Put any one of these in a single pot, and I would probably be doing a lot better by them, and I would probably be a lot farther along on having something that's nice. That will also free up. This will also free up. This is a nicer pot than this display deserves also. So yeah, this is a Tokonoma pot. So it could be for this whenever this comes along. That color would probably go well with that ruby color. And that concludes our little catch up on maples for this episode, I believe. Yeah. Next up to our left is the Ponderosa. Boy, what a lot of stuff this thing has been through. I ordered this tree online from a grower that I have had good luck with in the past. And this tree came from Golden Arrow Bonsai in Deadwood, South Dakota. This tree was collected in 2022 off the side of a mountain at a very high elevation, 6,000 feet, I want to say. And it's been through a lot. It's been through a lot in that when I took possession of the tree, I styled it, and I put the bonsai jacks to it. I put some branches in slings and guy wires and started trying to compress the tree a little bit. And I brought the foliage from up here where it had been to down here, which is kind of in front of the tree a little bit, I know. But it's all sprawled out and long because that's what Yamadori ponderosas tend to do. They get ridiculously long, and you kind of have to try to style them, but fold them up to style them in a way that you wouldn't have to worry about had this thing been a bonsai. But then had this thing been a bonsai, it would, this is an over 100-year-old tree. So it's been doing what it wanted to in the wild for over 100 years. And it's our job to correct that. So one thing is we have these branches that are really long, and they want to get a really long way from the tree. And we want to try to make the tree as compact as possible. So there are ways around that. You can just fold everything up and style it, and when you wire it, maybe it'll back bud, and you take those back buds and start trying to work your way back. But the other side to that is once the trunk and the limbs start to bark over, you're not going to see back buds there. They don't back over, they don't back bud. Once they bark over, there you go. You were able to walk through that little minefield. So what I have done to this tree then was I decided that I have heard both that they can and cannot exist in this zone. And rather than take a chance to see whether or not those who said they could knew, or whether those who said they couldn't knew, I decided to go with plan B, which is to overwinter the tree at a place that has colder winters than we do, which was a more northern location of me in California. So I overwintered the tree at a well-known bonsai master's gardener, Peter T. lectures, Peter T. sells trees, Peter T. teaches bonsai. So all of those things going. So I decided to overwinter this tree there at his place. And at that time, we still were lingering with some things that I wasn't happy about. I wasn't happy with the way that I was, with the amount of, the exchange of water and oxygen on this tree. It looked like to me like it was taking a long time to dry out, but it was drying out. And I just looked at that as the slower metabolism of the ponderosa pine. So 2 winters ago, I overwintered it at Peter T's garden. And before I picked it up, we had a conversation and discussed grafting. And he grafted some scions on this tree. He grafted 6. Of that 6, we had a hard year that year. I think it was probably the 90 degree. It could have been the rain, but then because you're not supposed to let your scions get wet, and they may have, or it could have been the 90 degree temperatures that we had in October. But of my 6 grafts, of the 6 scions that were put on this tree, one took, and it is kind of prominent in the shot. I'm centered right on it. That's out of all the stuff that's on there, seemingly, as far as I know right now, that's the future of the tree. And to graft it, everything else went away. The guy wires that I had bringing this branch down got cut loose. The copper wire that had been put on that main branch, pulling it farther down, making it a little less straight, also cut loose. We released all the wires, changed the hormonal allocation of the branches, who's above who and whatever. That's all a part of grafting. And the idea is to make the auxin and serotonin go to the branches that you have just grafted on there, while at the same time making sure that those branches have plenty of things going on that's original behind them, so that the sap flow will be coming by them. I wouldn't want that graft to be on the end of this branch. That would probably signify the death of the branch. But if you've got your graft in there in a high traffic area, while that limb is trying to feed all of this other happy foliage, it goes right on by. It goes right on by that, which keeps that graft alive. And that graft is outgrowing the original stuff by a bunch. Okay, so then the idea was, this past winter, we were going to take it just before spring and have more grafts put on it, only I dropped the ball on that. I made an appointment, got all of my ducks in a row, but then had a transportation snafu that caused us to miss our appointment. And that was opportunity missed that year, last year. Meanwhile, the tree is continuing to bark over the sites that didn't take the graft last time. Those general areas are less likely to be able to take a graft this time because they have barked over. Meanwhile, our one good graft is growing. And since I missed that opportunity to get the tree grafted, I took the opportunity to repot the tree because I hadn't been happy with how long it's taken the tree to dry out over watering. It still had quite a bit of mountain soil in it. So this past spring, we repotted this tree. Seemed like a sort of risky move, but it also seemed like it's no time like the present. So we were in our window. I was seeing things I didn't like about the soil and the substrate, and I thought the look of the tree was probably suffering from that. I believe I was right. When I pulled the tree out of the substrate, I saw that I had more than one different soil condition going on at the same time. I had soil that was mountain soil that was taking a long time to dry out. I saw soil at the bottom, which was substrate put at the bottom, that was more what we would consider bonsai soil. It was drying out sooner. So any roots that went down there and were trying to promote the life of the tree would die before these things finally dried out, or these things would begin to rot, and they were the base to this. So if this rots and dies, you lose this anyway. And that's what I was seeing. I was seeing iffy stuff up here. We repotted the tree. It took about a month and a half, I would say, to recover. But we're starting to see the kind of growth on this tree that I see on other people's trees when they really have got their ponderosas dialed in. What I'm seeing on this tree still is a mixture of heat damage from last October and all the new growth that's coming in, all the flush, hard green stuff that's pushing out now. The tree is really showing better color than it has shown since I've had it. Also, very, very encouraging is this tree dries out now pretty quickly. I can water this tree, and on the 3rd day, it has been ready for water for about a half a day or so. So it's really moving the water. And we have the temperatures now that it should be, but But yeah, both things are happening, which tells me when it's moving, when it's when it's drying out the soil as fast as it's drying out, that tells me for sure that we have new roots down here, and that our repot worked, that we have new roots down there, that they're flourishing, and that they are making possible the allocation of pushing out of new growth. So on that front, could not be happier. I was pretty disappointed. I was pretty disappointed when my graft didn't happen. Also, I do not like the idea of grafting a graft. Now, why were we grafting it? By grafting this ponderosa with Japanese black pine, even though those needles look pretty long, we have methods to make Japanese black pine needles shorter. I will be able to get those needles quite a bit shorter than I would be able to get those needles to be on a ponderosa. Also, the part where I was concerned about this being a high elevation pine living on the California coast, that is the concern. The part where whenever the Japanese black pine takes over and is the dominant foliage on this tree, we cut off all the ponderosa. From that moment on, the tree will behave and act and live in a zone comparable to a Japanese black pine, which takes us out of that danger zone. So it's a win-win-win. I am looking at possibly taking it this winter and trying again to get those grafts. I'm not happy with the idea of having my grafted ponderosa have only one active scion on it. That means that I could build a beautiful tree out of that. If there's no way to graft it in the future because we have too much bark, fine. I can make a beautiful tree out of that. But I think that it will always be maybe a little less than I want if I only have one active. If I'm building a tree off of one graft, I think I need at least two. 3 I think would put me in the sweet spot, and 4 I probably wouldn't even consider that choices. I would probably try to keep 4 active grafts just for the health and maintain the vigor of the tree. That's where we are. I'm overall really happy with that. The only thing I got going on, I looked at the tree a little while ago and went, Patricia, you can finally rest assured that the tree probably won't turn around and die on you because it's out of its zone. That Japanese black pine is going to hedge that for you more and more the more it grows. The only thing I have left to worry about is ponderosas are high heat tolerant because they're a high elevation, but they're also super cold tolerant. And we have this thing that happens in the Bay Area where we get some of our hottest temperatures in October, and trees will begin in October to work their way more towards cold weather hardiness. While at that time we turn around and get 90-degree days. The damage to this tree from that 90-degree, the weak branches died. The healthy branches have burns, right? Nobody escaped. But that was last October. Now we're about to hit September, knowing that October is coming again. That was last year. All I can do is try to make sure that I keep my pot cool on those 2 or 3 days when our temperatures are likely to do that again this year. Try to keep those roots cool at the risk of overwatering. That's better probably in that one time period. A little overwatering to keep the roots cool is probably better than having those roots hit super high temperatures whenever the tree is trying to whenever the tree thought it was going to winter. Kind of drifted away, and now we're looking at a coastal oak. We're 20 minutes in, and we're looking at my coastal oak. I did a little bit of summer prune back on this a week ago, and it's just doing really good. It's got its back to us. We have a hollow feature on this tree right about here on the other side. Last year I decided to try to bring the tree down a little bit, so we have a little branch here that could, and we have a little branch here that could. I'm gonna try to promote those. They're not in good light, so they could go either way, but I'm continuing to try to promote those. The tree is filling in nicely from a massive amount of cutback we undertook a couple of years ago because of some huge amount of dieback. So since then we've been up on our feedings, we've been up on our waterings, and the tree seems to be thriving again, and it pushes out so much stuff. And we've been pruning and watching it just fill in more and more and more. We've just about, I have spots that are thin, but I was looking at dead spots, just big old huge gaps in the foliage. And I'm not saying they're not still there, but you can already see the cavalry is on its way. We've got stuff filling in, and we're pruning that back now and letting it go. And I'm really happy with the development of this tree over the last couple of years, especially. Things really started changing for me on doing this tree and my cork bark whenever I started pruning the tips. And pruning the tips is this year pretty much changed to pinching the tips, although we still do prune whenever it comes to cutting stuff back. But instead of just pruning the tips every year to make everything flush out, I've amended that now. We're going to start pinching the tips sooner. And see the joys of that technique. And I went through here a show or so ago and started cutting off some of the top branches, not all, but most of the top branches, the stuff going straight up that we had allowed because we didn't have enough branching anyway. And that's allowed us to see in the tree a little better, and I'm pretty happy with that. It's still got our back to us, but you can kind of see the layers of the structure now a lot better. Having done that, and once again, I'm really happy with the amount of bounce back that I've gotten out of this tree. I fertilize with BioGolds, and I just keep it. We don't really have much of this is an evergreen. We don't really have a full-blown winter. Some of my trees just kind of just catnap during the winter, don't really go fully dormant. So for that reason, I tend to feed my oaks and my black pines year-round. I see them in my bald cypress, even though it didn't have a leaf on it. I see these babies heaving up out of the ground from root growth. So why not feed them in case they get hungry? We're developing trees here. So now I'm kind of doing a little overlook, and what we see is a mixture of ponderosa pines and Japanese black pines. And this is a ponderosa, this is a ponderosa, this is a ponderosa, this is a Japanese black pine, and this is one. And that is a over 20 year from seed, probably going on a 24, I don't know, it's probably a 22-year-old tree from seed, Japanese black pine. And these are my bald cypress. This is my trio of bald cypress. They're thirsty. I've just started a process. I was cutting the new growth back every year, picking out what we would carry into the new year, and I would do that every winter or every fall as all the foliage finally dies, where we'd enjoy that rustic red, beautiful foliage. But then after it was starting to come off, I would go through and select branches. The rest of the time, I let it mostly put out everything that it wants to. Now, for the last couple of years, I've been working on ramification on these bald cypress trees, and I decided that I didn't like the look. I like the ramification that I'm doing on my oaks. I like the ramifications that I'm doing to my maples. But I like the look of just allowing these bald cypress to do that thing they do, where they just prolifically put out branches, and then in 5 years, all of those guys are gone, and they will have put out a bazillion more in between then, and it's just always turning over branches. I'm here. I've got scissors. I got you. I decided I liked that looked better than the stuff that I was building that would look too fat too soon, to me anyway. Now, this is just personal taste. I don't even know that I've heard anybody else say this, so don't necessarily go by me. Let's just wait and see how it comes out. But I have been pruning back some of the branches that I had been working on ramifying. I was into tertiary, 3 down on that. And I'm doing that in lieu of this longer, more graceful stuff that bald cypresses do. Now, even though that it would still, to my mind, be not bar branches like what you see here. We'll do every other branch when we do our final design. We're not so much worried about a final design yet. These branches come and go fairly quickly what we're trying to build is all of this stuff and all of this stuff, and to make this become this, that'll take a little while. And we can, we can see when we're a year away from that, and then decide to double down on which branches stay and who's going to be here for the grand opening of the repot from a pre-bonsai to a bonsai pot. That would signify that we no longer need too many roots. We need just enough roots for a bonsai, and to try to maintain what we built. So that's kind of where we're at and kind of what we're doing there. Okay, that's got us there. I'm going to go back to tray number 2. I don't have to worry about this thing overheating. This is a concern. Tray number 2. This has one ponderosa and a whole bunch of Mame and Shohin Japanese black pines. This is a Japanese black pine that we did a needle cut. We did our candle cut, and as you can see, we have little buds just popping out where we have cut its old candles. It's doing exactly what we had hoped in a way that is very, very pleasing. We also, a lot of these got replanted or potted up this year, so they all didn't get that candle treatment. But the one I just showed you did. And this one, my little peanut, it too got the candle treatment. Yeah, that's how it's going. And we're getting those needles shorter. Now those are going to continue to grow out until fall. And when they're finished growing out, it will be our job to go in there and select the new buds that it came out with to replace the buds we cut. We'll go back through and go through all those clusters and select them down to pairs. And so that will, when we have done that, we'll be able to see the rest of the tree again. But you can already see our little Mame looks marvelous. What's in picture now is one of our little flagships trees. This is our 80-year-old Japanese black pine. This is a cork bark Japanese black pine. It has been in our collection for about 5 years. I've got it turned away from us a little right now, so it's getting... it's healthy, it's happy, the color is good. I have taken a sabbatical from decandling this tree over the last 2 years. This will be the second year in a row I've put off decandling this tree. Older cork bark Japanese black pines probably should not be decandled every year. You take it on a year by year. We had a little issue, a little health issue, a little case of the sniffles a couple of years ago. Right now, we're bouncing back with, like I like to say, we're coming back with a vengeance. This tree is looking really good at the moment, and we want to try to maintain that. So I did do a needle reduction in the fall, but other than that, we're just keeping it kind of light, and we're pretty happy with the results. This is our 80-year-old cork bark Japanese black pine. Now, let's see. This is going to be tricky to shoot. This is my literati. It was a tall drink of water, and I went really freaky deaky on it. It got really, I went kind of freaky deaky on its bending and on its movement. And now we've probably lost about a foot of height, and it's out there. I'm happy with it. It's kind of like when somebody you know gets a drastic haircut and it's good, but you look at them for a second and you go, oh crap, I was just like, I wasn't expecting that. But I love the look, and it's how our literati Japanese black pine looks now. It's kind of got its back to us, but it reminds me of smoke. While we're here, I want to talk about this little guy. This is an example of one of my little, this is an overpotted 4-year-old Japanese black pine, and it would be a lot bigger had I put it in a smaller pot, but thinking that I would not having a smaller pot, I just thought that it would grow faster if I overpotted it a little. And I overpotted it a little, and that's what happens when you overpot things. That tree is 4 years old, and it should be so much bigger than that by now. But it's doing well. We cut its candles back some to keep it short. It doesn't, what we do about candle cutting doesn't really count for that tree as much because, maybe I can show you better, because it's in a terracotta pot and not a bonsai pot, and it's overpotted, which means cutting the candles is not going to really cut back its resources. It has all those roots filling that whole pot up, but not as fast as I want because I overpotted it. That's the lesson learned there. Also, I've got more. Sorry about that kind of weird, but I've got more. These are our colander trees, what I call our colander girls. They are mostly doing great. The first one I put in, the tree I'm pointing at here is our flagship of that. The first one I put in this tube didn't make it. I think I had an air pocket issue in that substrate, and it died. So the second tree thrived. I mean, just took right off. So encouraged, I did this one, that one, and this one. And then I decided to go large. So I got a bigger colander and decided to go with insulation, pipe insulation, that's foam rubber for these tubes, thinking that would be so much easier for me to get the tree out of when it was all said and done. So it seemed like the perfect match. So I went with one of my larger little seedlings, and I went with one of our larger little seedlings, and I went with that stuff. And we did a show about this about 3 weeks ago, and the colander was quite a bit larger. And for that reason, I picked one of our larger Japanese black pine seedlings, but it was still a larger seedling. The end result was that tree took a nasty turn almost immediately. I don't know. I do know. Here is that failed experiment. When I was potting it up, I went, I didn't think about that. This isn't very big. It wasn't. That dried out faster than anything else on the balcony. And the end result was, I didn't just sit back and totally let the tree die, but I knew within 3 days that it had a tough time. And this color is not getting any better. And I think we lost that tree. Here's why we lost that tree. This hole was so small that the tree didn't keep enough moisture long enough, as long as any of these do, because that was a small amount. And even though I was watering down here and there at the same time, the roots weren't long enough to make it to help. It would just sit up here where it was, just freshly planted, and without the perlite in this much of a tube holding water long enough, it dried out. We dried that tree out. Now, my thinking was that this wouldn't be too big of a colander by the time the roots got all the way down there, that we might be in the sweet spot. But when I lost this, I also thought you were probably also kidding yourself as to whether or not this tree would be big enough, just having grown those roots, to be in this larger colander. This colander is a great colander for this, and is exactly what we need. But instead of, this is the fail. It should probably be this, and it should probably be a larger tree than these. A larger tree than these, plus a larger diameter tube for more substrate, more like what I had in my successful ones, and that would certainly succeed. So that is a little, sometimes our experiments, we go back and we look and we go, look what we're doing, look what we've done, look how that's coming out, and then sometimes we have what were you thinking moments. But I wasn't going to just sit there and let the tree die and not try something. So I quickly unpotted it. I made a little tube here. We made sure our substrate was good to go, and we make sure we're keeping this guy watered. It can bounce back. It may already be gone. I'll keep you posted. But that was a direct result of this being a fail. I think if the diameter of this was this is foam. It's really light. It's really easy to work with. When I put this down here, I went, I didn't really remember that hole being that small. But it was too late. We were rolling by that point. I'd already bought it hook, line, and sinker. But that's what got us. That was our weak link. Also, what I said about this being too big of a colander for a little tree, probably very true, but we never got that far. So that's, all right, so that's those guys. This is my white wisteria. It has first bonsai status. It's taken its summer sabbatical. It drops all of its foliage. So there we go. It's just hanging out doing that. I brought it back outside because I would forget to water it if I kept it in the house and it didn't have any leaves on it. These are the pines that we've been popping from seed from the last 3 years. Some of these are the ones we popped this past winter. In my kitchen under a fluorescent light, they're our future little Lebowski achievers, and aren't we proud of the little Lebowski achievers? This is my Dawn Redwood, aka my Trident Maple. No, this is my Dawn Redwood, and we've been fighting like a mom and a daughter for 5 years now, and we've been able to find some mutual ground, and I'm started making this tree into a tree shape. We'll see how that goes. It's pushing out a lot of new growth. Redwoods, Dawn Redwoods, the saying is they like to have their feet wet, so you do not want this tree to dry out. If it were to dry out while I were at work and then that 90-degree day came, I would come in and find the foliage wrecked for the year. And sometimes whenever that happens, to this tree especially, or if we get powdery mildew, it'll quit for the year. It'll go, I'm out. I'll see you. I'll see you next spring maybe. So that's kind of where I've been at with this tree. We've had some pretty ridiculous things going on, things that I didn't want to cut off because they were part of the tree's lifeline, while at the same time they were big and huge. And I was wondering if the tree would ever grow into them. And for sake of the health of the tree, I was like, well, we're just gonna go with it and let it be our ugly tree on the balcony. And sometimes I would come out here and go, are you sure you don't want to give this tree away to somebody who, or go ahead, don't bud out this year. Don't bud out this year and see if your ass didn't end up in the dump, and then but it always did, and this year we're starting to see a lot of improvement, and I've been working hard on correcting my mistakes. Don't expect too much out of a design. Don't go changing your mind on a design and robbing the tree of its energy only to turn around and do that again, because you never know when nature will throw it a curve and you will be thing 1 and nature could be thing 2 or 3, and then you've lost your tree. So that's sort of that. Did I talk about? No, I didn't. I didn't talk about our cork bark oak. This is our cork bark oak. We did a pretty massive cutback on this guy about 2 weeks ago, and it goes through a lot of water. This thing got watered heavily earlier today, and it's going to need watering again before the day's out. From our cutback, I did quite a bit of cutback. This is the tree that I've allowed to overgrow quite a bit because of the same thing that I was saying. I had a lot of dieback on both of my oaks at the same time. So I was this one didn't die back as much as the other one, but the lessons that I learned in trying to fix the other one, it's gone a long way towards helping me fix this one. This is the tree where I learned about oxen. This is the tree where I learned about pruning and learned about cutting, pruning back your tips and stuff, pinching tips as it's called. This is the tree that I learned that just because I found the tree in a very dry state and read that it was very drought tolerant, that the first key to getting it to bud out was to water it, and water it every day, and not to push that drought tolerant thing. We also feed this, as you can see, because it doesn't go fully dormant in the winter. I feed it. We're building a tree, so I feed it. Whenever I have a perfect finished tree or what I think is a good place to hold for a minute, then we'll pull back some of the fertilizer, not all of it, and see how long we can maintain that sweet spot. And then whenever it comes time to rebuild, we throw the stuff down heavy, and we'll start heavily feeding all over again. Everything I do in the way of development involves as much of everything as it could possibly need to thrive. There's always a way to build the tree you want to build, while at the same time giving it all of the things that it should need to thrive. That's just, you know, I don't want to do things to get the tree to be the tree I want it to be at its own expense. So we feed it, and then it backbuds and gives us choices, and then we prune down to the choices that we want after it's already made all of the food that comes with those choices, and after it's already taken all of that food and stored it down in the leaves or the trunk or wherever else. Then we go through and we style our tree. So this is probably worth mentioning. You see this branch right here. This guy actually thinks it's the second leader. It's escaped. There it is. It's left the building. It's left the building. It will cause a certain amount of swelling. If I'm pointing at it, it'll cause a certain amount of swelling right here, but it'll also cause this to roll over fast. It's also going to be probably the biggest part of the apex of the tree. It will move the most water. It will accumulate the most oxygen, and it will drive the most girth right here between now and October or November, whenever we lose our foliage this year. So yeah, we're gonna let that go. I'm totally fine with that. If that were to make something that was unsightly, I would just put my chop right here and take this branch and call that the new apex, bend that straight up, and that would be our new apex. I have options, but we're probably just, you know, we've got a ways yet, but it's been a really enjoyable trip when it comes to these ball cypresses. They always seem to be the tail end of any bonsai tour I do on the balcony. I kind of either start or end here, and these have been my pleasure. I have enjoyed these trees so much, and it seems like videos about them tend to do well. So I guess a lot of people like them. I would say when it comes to bonsai, my fetish is probably more leaning towards the pines, but I can't say enough good things about my bald cypress. And I'll look forward to next spring when it flushes out with just hundreds and hundreds of new shoots, because I feel like I've left this a little bare by cutting back a little bit of my ramified branches. All right. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. We will do a show tomorrow. It'll be on this Labor Day weekend. I know everybody's off doing something. Our views of tank, we can deal. We just keep making the videos, and we keep adding to our production numbers, and we keep adding to the amount of information, and whether or not the masses rush to their video screens, stop that trip to Disneyland to see what Pat and Frida have done, it's not really our concern. We know who we are, we know what we're doing, and we know who likes us. So yeah, I appreciate you. Frida Reba Dorsey appreciates you. And thank you all so much for watching. Happy holidays.